On so I'm Dr. Joan Delto. I'm a urologist in Omaha at Catholic Health Initiatives, or CHI, and assistant professor in urology at Creighton University. So thank you for having me today. I'm really excited to be here today virtually with everyone. So, so I just wanted to take it back to my upbringing. So I grew up in Hawaii. My family, both of my parents were from the Philippines, and they had the opportunity to move to Hawaii. So my dad had the opportunity to come to Hawaii to work in the pineapple fields, the sugarcane plantations through Dole and Del Monte, and they were having a huge influx of people coming in from different countries, whether it was Japan, Korea, China, and the Philippines. And so my dad came to Hawaii. He gained citizenship. He was able to join the US Army and really acclimated himself to Hawaii. He made some trips back and forth to the Philippines and eventually was able to petition my mom to Hawaii to come join him. And from there, they started a family. So you can see there was a huge age difference between my dad and my mom, but they, had 3 kids in Hawaii, and I'm the youngest, my brother, my sister, and me. And so my dad was older and he wasn't able to work. So my mom really took on that role of working full time. And it was very difficult for them to raise a family. So they were planning ahead, and they petitioned for my grandmother to come and live with us and help take care of the family. And so it was really hard. I mean, my grandma had to leave her husband, the farm that they had out there, 3 of her adult children and all of her grandchildren in the Philippines to come help my mom and help raise us, raise her grandchildren. But she also saw it as an opportunity to come and earn money and help the family overall. So some of the lessons that I learned from my family early on, we came from very humble beginnings. They were really resourceful and tried to be very wise with their spending. As soon as they could, trying to get a house that was a little bit more stable for us. They had my grandma. This is an actual picture. But she was growing vegetables outside of the house for us to eat and for her to sell as a form of income. We never had anything new. We always had hand-me-downs or, Goodwill, thrift shops. I wore my sister's, my brother's clothes. I mean, I never had anything new. And we were, always trying to find ways to earn money. I remember walking around our town with my grandma, and we would be literally looking through trash cans and picking up aluminum cans to recycle and have that extra source of income. Another thing that I learned from my family, my parents and my grandmother, was work ethic. So my mom was a teacher in the Philippines, but when she came to America, she didn't have the credentials to do that. So she ended up working at the Army base, Schofield Army base, where she worked in the mess hall. So, she started off scrubbing pots and pans and eventually worked her way up to be supervisor. And she was working long hours. So it was really we didn't get to see her too much. And she was always tired by the time we saw her. Other things that, my grandma had and my mom had taught us to do was to help around the house and do chores. If any of you know, maybe Edmund knows, but this is like, learning how to cook rice. And this is the Filipino method of how much water to put, is using that line on your finger. But I was learning how to cook rice. I was learning how to wash clothes. We didn't have enough money for, a washer dryer, so we were literally hand washing our clothes. My grandma had a lot of vegetables, so I was peeling beans. She would give me bowls and bowls of beans, and I would just sit there and peel beans and figure out a way to how do I do this faster? How do I get more dexterity? And I think it really helped to build my hand skills, honestly, looking back at things. But they worked really hard, and they got us involved and helped allowed us to do chores and contribute to the family. So this is a picture of my grandma And I think she was the epitome of family and sacrifice. This was taken at a local newspaper. So this is the Filipino style where ladies would walk around with a basket on their head and balance it and walk around town. And she would take the vegetables that she grew in the garden and walk around town and try to sell vegetables to people. And so little did we know that, with all the money that she was diligently saving, she was providing for her family. This balikbayan box is like a Filipino staple, where you just fill it up with, canned goods like Spam, corned beef, clothes, shoes, anything that your family needs, and you send it back to the Philippines to help provide for your family members back in the Philippines. And she was also saving a college fund for us, for our 3 kids, to help contribute to our college education. And she also helped put her grandchildren back in the Philippines through college there as well. And eventually, they were able to petition, our uncles or cousins to come to the US, and they, studied, they got great jobs, engineers and things like that, and really just building the family so that we can have more education and more opportunities. The other thing that my family did was develop a community. So in Wahiwa, where I grew up, essentially this was a place where, it was very close to the pineapple field. So it was a very diverse area where there was a lot of Filipinos, Chinese, Japanese, Portuguese, Hawaiians. And so we developed a very diverse community. But there was a lot of Filipinos there too. And oftentimes they came from the same region. So it was nice to have a Filipino community where, you could have coffee every day, breakfast, and help each other in times of need. So they developed a community in our town. And as you know, Filipinos are pretty religious and spiritual. We joined a church. We joined Trinity Lutheran Church. It was very unique because it was half in English, and then it was then translated into Ilocano, our dialect of Filipino. So we had a big, church community there. And so, so when my dad passed away when I was 6, the community in Wahiwa, the church community really came through for us, coming over to our house, bringing food, seeing how they can help and things like that. So it was a really nice community that we had in our neighborhood. So essentially the reason that, my dad came to Hawaii was for the American dream. Our parents thought that the way to, your ticket out of poverty is education. And so their goal was to save money for their children to go to college. So, they didn't buy themselves fancy things, and they didn't, need a lot of material things. And they were just saving and saving and diligently saving for our future. They wanted us to have a good job. They wanted us to be able to provide for each other and provide for our future families and just have less struggle in our lives. So education is huge. So interestingly, when I was a kid, I was really shy and I didn't speak very much, and they thought that I was that Ilocano was my primary language. So they put me in English second language, or ESL class. And once I kind of got out of my shell and was talking more and got standardized testing, they put me into like these, they call it like enrichment classes. So I was, surrounded by a room full of very high achieving individuals who are so intelligent, and it was really great for me to be in that environment, because I feel like my classmates really pushed me to do more and to do better. And the struggle for me was trying to navigate homework and projects on my own. My mom was working full time. My dad passed away. My grandma had no more than a 6th grade education, and my older sister and brother were off doing their own thing. So I really had to navigate projects and school by myself. And so I think that taught me how to be more resilient and just kind of find a way, just figure things out and make things happen. The Equation. This is a picture of my old high school group called The Equation, and these women, very just good people who are, just have high expectations for themselves, who are so intelligent, very well-rounded. I was able to collaborate with them on projects and learn a lot from them. We would do, all-nighters just to get things done. We would join the same sports, do leadership activities. So these women were really important in my life early on to really push me to do more. And so in high school, we had to talk about career planning. And there's a picture of Joe Coy there, because if you guys know Joe Coy, he has this skit about how Filipino moms want their kids to be nurses. And that was absolutely true in my household. So my mom wanted me to be a nurse. So I thought, yes, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to be a nurse. But one day, I think it was in middle school, or early high school, my career counselor, as we were doing a project about what we were going to be when we grew up, I told her I was going to be a nurse. And she said, "Hey, Joan, why don't you think about being a doctor? I think you could do it." And that was the catalyst that said, yeah, maybe I should do it. And that literally changed my life. In terms of college planning, I decided to go pre-med. And fortunately, the Philippine Medical Association of Hawaii gave me a scholarship that was really helpful in terms of, finances going into college. So I graduated from the University of Southern California in Los Angeles. I was pre-med. I developed my own community there. I joined a sorority called Tau Theta Pi, which is a multi-ethnic sorority. There was a significant amount of female Filipino students in that sorority, interestingly, and it was really great for me to see and look up to these women who were beautiful, intelligent, confident, smart, and it was so driven. I mean, we had pre-law, pre-med, architects, like everything, you name it. So it was really inspiring to me to have these upperclassmen who were doing, who had high aspirations. Also at USC, I worked in an immunotherapy lab, did some research, met another female urologist, Kristen Sanderson, who was a uro-oncology fellow there, who invited me to come watch an open nephrectomy case with one of USC's best surgeons, who I think has since retired, but that was an amazing experience. And that was my first opportunity to see surgery live. And also at that time, I had my hustle. I was working at a restaurant as a server as well, trying to make money at that way too. And so, I was all over the place hustling, but, trying to move forward with my goals of becoming a doctor in the future. At that time, though, my grandma had fallen ill, and so I wanted to go back to Hawaii, and I thought it was time for me to go back. And so I applied to the John A. Burns School of Medicine and was able to become a student there. And I was really excited about the diverse student body there, with all different types of, cultures at the University of Hawaii. There was a significant group of Filipino students, and we got together and did a Philippines trip to St. Luke's Hospital in Manila. And that was really exciting to see what the medical system was like there, and the need for medical specialists and doctors and medical care out there. Was also interesting during my third year at John Burns, during your clinical rotations, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought I was going to do family medicine, something non-surgical. And it ended up being that I liked working with my hands, and I was pretty good at it. And I think it was peeling the beans, honestly. But I thought I would do something surgical, and it was really nice to see other female surgeons like Dr. Leticia Diniega and Dr. Raquel Buenos, who were female Filipino surgeons out there who were excellent, and they were well respected in the community, and so they were great role models for me as well as a third-year medical student. And so, I just tried to expose myself to all different types of specialties as I could, and I ended up walking into an open partial nephrectomy surgery with a man called a urologist called Dr. Piers, and it was the most beautiful anatomy I've ever seen in my life. It was the most relaxed OR I've ever been in my life, and I really wanted to explore urology, and I did a few more rotations with him and his partners, and there's robotics, there's big open surgeries, you're still working with bowel, you do vaginal surgeries, you work with lasers and technology. And so I thought this was the specialty for me. So I chose urology. And this was decided like my second to the last rotation in third year. I had no idea what urology is really about until then. And I didn't know how competitive it was and how people were taking years off doing research and doing all these things to make their application much more, much stronger. And so match day comes along and I didn't match in urology. It was very disappointing. But I had a plan. I was just going to keep moving forward. And I ended up doing a preliminary general surgery year in Cooperstown, New York, in upstate New York at Bassett Medical Center. And I was really thrilled to see that during my internship year, there were so many female attending surgeons and residents. I think there was like three senior residents that were female in a class of 2 per year. And then I also met Dr. Jennifer Lucas, who was a urologist out there, who really took me under her wing, gave me urology advice, life advice, and again, just strengthening the urology community and seeing just how such wonderful, nice people the urology community has. So match day, thinking that a year of surgery would improve my application, nope, didn't match again. Extremely disappointing. So I needed to get more, help. I talked to a lot of different people, what's going to strengthen my application. So I ended up driving down to New York City and getting advice from some of the chairmen out there and seeing how I can strengthen my application. And so what I did was got a research fellowship at Columbia University in New York City. I met Dr. Corey Bodishen, who was my PI and mentor. And I did a 2-year postdoctoral research fellowship there, doing preclinical trials in bladder and prostate cancer. And in this experience, I've learned from such a strong, powerful female leader of how to, navigate situations and get things done. And yeah, she was such a great role model for me. But this experience taught me a lot. But I also got my first author publication, which was exciting. And then I was looking into categorical positions, just getting straight into urology. And I did a 1-year clinical fellowship or substituted for a PGY2 who was no longer in the program, and I took over that person's position and ended up at the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center in Boston, where I was essentially a PGY2. I was doing consults, running the floor, doing all this gut work, meanwhile operating on call every other day, every other weekend. And with that experience really helped me to learn a lot about urology, how to operate, and how to manage being busy in triage. After that, a categorical position opened up in Miami Beach at the Mount Sinai Medical Center. And I thought that this was the perfect position for me. I thought my mentors there were amazing. I learned so much about urology, about how to operate, and about life. And it was a long journey, but I think that this journey was really perfect for me. After my residency, I really loved robotics, and I wanted to do a fellowship. And so I went back to the BI in Boston and did a minimally invasive and robotic fellowship there. And interestingly, the community there was a lot of Filipino OR nurses and scrub techs, and they really took me under their wing. I mean, they would pack lunches for me and say, hey, this package is for you, find it in this refrigerator. I've got adobo for you. I made pancit last night. Or they would give me skyflakes when they saw that my energy was low. At the end of my rotation, they made a boodle fight for me. I don't know if you guys have heard about that, but this is just this huge spread of like Filipino food. That was just amazing. But they really took care of me, and you can see how there's a strong Filipino community and how we take care of each other. So after my fellowship, I took on my job where I'm currently at now. So CHI at Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska. I am the first female faculty in the urology residency program. We are currently taking 2 residents per year, and we're fairly new. I'm building a robotic and laparoscopic urologic practice there. I'm very involved in medical school education, research, and mentorship. And faculty mentor for 2 clubs out there, the American Medical Women's Association, as well as the Association of Women Surgeons there. Thinking back, my journey was pretty long and circuitous, but I thought it was perfect. And I think what helped me was the values that my family had given to me. And part of that was the Filipino values with family, where, you take care of your family, family comes first. work ethic, and seeing firsthand from my mom working countless hours, and my grandmother, who was just, trying to take care of the family, both in Hawaii and abroad in the Philippines. Courage. So my dad's courage to leave his country and come for, the American dream, that has allowed me to have courage to leave Hawaii and go to different cities for different opportunities. Even if I didn't know anybody, I just, took the leap. Um, Education, again, they thought education was a ticket out of poverty, and just really just using education as a launch pad for opportunity. Sacrifice, as sacrificing their dreams. My mom could have gone back to school and gone back to be a teacher, but she wanted to really put forward her efforts in taking care of her family and building up our dreams. Resourcefulness, learning how to live with not a lot, and using what you have to the best of your ability. And not thinking about what you don't have, but understanding what you have and how to work with that. My family has built a huge community. No matter where I ended up, I developed a community, whether in LA it was with Tau Beta Pi, or in Boston with the OR staff and friends. Building a community it's exquisitely important, especially when you have such a high demanding profession. You need to have a sense of community. Spirituality, oh boy, wherever I ended up, I always tried to find a church, and through life and disappointment, always praying and trying to find a way, and trying to just really rely on what your path is supposed to be. But spirituality is huge in the Filipino community. And then grit, and I think I saw that from just my family and what they've had to do to get by and provide for their family. And so they've showed me firsthand, and they've personally encouraged me to move forward with my goals. And I think that's inherent with the Filipino culture. And so my mom always says, try your best and pray to God. And I always take that to heart every day. Whenever there's any challenges, that's what I lean on. So that's my story, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Delto. That was so amazing to hear about your journey. I feel really, really inspired right now, and I can speak for all of us. I feel like I relate a lot to parts of your story. Um, and I wanted to ask, what is your day to day like right now? Yeah.
Sure. So my day to day, I would say 3 days of clinic, full days of clinic, and then 2 full days of OR. And so I have like dedicated robotic time. And then since we're part of a urology residency program, we have academic conference at least twice a week, journal clubs and other events in the evenings, once a month. And then I take call, there's 5 partners currently, so I take call once a week, every 5 weeks.
Cool. Then I just have a list of questions. So if anyone else has questions, feel free to write in the chat so I can highlight it, or just interrupt me and feel free to jump in. Hearing about your matching journey was really interesting. I think in medical school, we don't really learn a lot about the match besides like you try your best to do it the first time. If not, like people eventually figure it out, but we just like don't know what that means after. So what kind of helped you get through the several like challenges in your matching journey, and what did you find like most helpful during that?
So I think it would have been easier if I knew what I wanted to do early on. And it's different. The timing is different for everybody. But I think getting in touch with, like, once you decide, getting in touch with somebody who's in that field to kind of get the most information as possible so that you can prepare, and kind of know, like, hey, these are the things that they're looking for in this particular match. Fortunately, I feel like with holistic review, things are changing where, your step scores are not necessarily going to make or break you, but they're looking at like the person as a whole. So I'm really excited to see how all of the holistic review takes into play as match happens moving forward. But I think that there's a lot of people who, may not get the best scores. Like I did. I didn't have like extremely high scores, but they were good. They weren't like exquisite, but I think that you can really miss out on really excellent candidates when you just kind of narrow out people just based on scores. So, but I think to answer your question, I think getting in touch with that specialty, getting as much information from different people in that specialty and upperclassmen who have gone through the same process as you. And I think trying to, do as much as you can outside of medicine to see, what drives you and how you can help others. And I think that also strengthens your application as well as research and academics. But
And I'll read out Kinsa's comment and question. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Echoing Sandra, there were aspects of your story I definitely relate to. Can you speak to how you found your voice as a woman in surgery/urology, especially as a first female faculty at your program? How do you go about making and claiming your space?
Right, so that's challenging. That's still something that I'm currently navigating because a lot of my partners have been in the system, have been in Nebraska for a long period of time, and I'm this unknown entity coming from the East Coast as a female. And so I do get boxed into a certain, to be honest, I do get boxed into a certain kind of category, like, oh, you only do incontinence and UTIs, but I don't do those things. I do oncology, I do, cancer cases, I do these kinds of things. So I think for me, it was just really trying to network and meet a lot of people, trying to build a referral base. I think it's trying to take good care of patients, make sure they have good outcomes so that your name and your reputation can kind of speak for you. And I think that's one way that I'm kind of claiming my space. But I think it's also having the courage to say things, but also saying things in a way that is very respectful and very calm, because there is that reputation that if a female gets loud or loses your temper, people are just going to think that you're just a hothead, or you're just the B word, or a lot of things that are not true. So I think it's just getting your point across in a way that's respectful and not emotional. And that has helped as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Delto, for sharing. I really appreciated hearing a lot about your story. I think I have a lot of parallels to my story. My grandparents also moved from the Philippines to Hawaii. They actually moved to Molokai to work on the pineapple plantations, which is, just hearing that is like very interesting. And I'm also Ilocano as well, so it was just very cool to hear so much of my own story, that other people have gone through the same things that I have. I did want to ask, I know you mentioned you had some Filipino physician mentors in Hawaii, but I was wondering, were you able to find that same physician mentorship like elsewhere? Like I grew up in LA, and like I have only really worked with like one Filipino physician. And even like my training in like New York, like I like did some of my rotations in New York. I didn't work with a single Filipino physician. I was wondering how you were able to find that elsewhere, like outside of like Hawaii and other places that are like have a large Filipino population.
Yeah, so I think like yourself, I think outside of University of Hawaii, I wasn't able to find that Filipino mentorship. But I just had to find mentorship somewhere. And so in LA at USC, it was Dr. Sanderson who, was a uro-oncology urologist, and just really, soaking up as much from her as possible. And the thing with urology, like I feel like they just really take care of their community, and they take you under their wing. And really, I mean, like not only was she talking to me about career, but also, we were running around the Rose Bowl for exercise and mental health well-being and, things like that. And then just, I wasn't able to find it within in Miami Beach. There was no other Filipino physicians that I knew of there, nor in Boston at the BI. So I just had to kind of build that connection with people who I wanted to, who I respected and wanted to emulate. So like Dr. Wagner, who's my fellowship director in Boston, Dr. Alan Meter, who was my residency program director in Miami, and these people have really kind of cultivated my career, and I emulate them. I text them all the time, and things like that. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't think there's at this point a lot of resources like Filipino physicians that I was able to come across. But I think maybe you and I will start being the points of contacts for other people as we move on in our career.
Great, thank you for that. I also had one more question. I wanted to ask, so I guess right now I'm currently deciding if I want to dual apply, just in terms of like, specialties. Did you ever like consider something else, or were you always set on urology? Because I think that's something that I'm kind of struggling with right now, and I'd love to get your sort of take on that.
Sure. Yeah. And I went back and forth and I thought, yeah, maybe general surgery, but I just really had my heart on urology for whatever reason. And I tell you, my friends who are already graduating from residency and already having jobs are like, Joan, do you really want to keep doing this? Like, why don't you just stop and like do something else and just get on with life? Like, you're not making any money, but it all comes down to like, I guess it's kind of self-awareness and what do you think is going to make you happy, and what job you think you can do every day, because this job's going to be really tough. But I'm so glad that when I come to work every day, I love what I do, and I love the operations that I do, and I feel so fortunate to have that, and I feel that I enjoy it even more because of the journey that I went through. But I think it's introspection and seeing what's going to make you happy. What can get you through day in and day out. Also, if I didn't go into urology, I was thinking about just quitting and going to real estate, but I'm glad I stayed on the path because it worked out.
Great, thank you for sharing.
Good luck with your journey.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Oh, and you should also talk to, other people, and especially I'm sure you've already done it, and see what their experience has been like and pros and cons and things like that. If you're thinking about family life, what specialty is going to be better for family life, and any, other interests that you have. If you want to do side hustle things, a lot of physicians nowadays are doing a lot of side hustle, businesses and things. So, taking all that into account.
And on that note, it was so funny because me and Akila were just talking before you came in, and I was telling her, I was like, I was not interested in surgery at all, and then I held like a gallbladder in my hand. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. And it kind of made me go through a life crisis because I was like, I wasn't planning on loving surgery a lot, and I don't really, this is a field that so many people like spend their whole life and like go into med school for and prepare the application for. So how do you, I guess, advise people who love like their surgery rotation? How do you advise them on exploring the field a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it's like what I did was I started shadowing. So like when I did that open nephrectomy, I started shadowing Dr. Pierce and his partners and just getting more information and like just kind of being in the process with them, seeing what other types of surgeries, what other things that they do, what's clinic like, and is that exciting for me? And so yeah, and I thought the personalities of urologists was really nice. I thought they were like the nicest surgeons ever. Um, but yeah, so that was really helpful. And like what does call look like? I think that's important too, because you want a good quality of life as well. But again, just getting as much information as possible, talking to people in that specialty, seeing what they love and what they don't love about it, and how they're able to manage like work-life balance and family, if that's something that you're interested in.
Thank you. And I know throughout your story, you mentioned so many amazing mentors that really shaped your career. As like a mentee, how do you be like the best mentee in your opinion?
I think it's being, I think, open to, you know, to, to I guess the advice that they give you, and just making sure that you keep in contact, because I know that they're extremely busy and sometimes they might forget, but just keep coming back and saying, hey, can we talk about this? Or, and yeah, I think it's just being in communication and being open to suggestions and knowing that no matter, like, they can tell you and give you advice, but at the end of the day, it's going to be your decision. And you just make the best, decision for you. But just be open to suggestions. So yeah. And you don't necessarily need just like one mentor too. You can have like different mentors and different aspects of your life and career. So definitely get multiple people that you can, build your community of mentors and people you can bounce ideas off of and get advice from.
Okay. And then if you're up for one last question, how would you advise? It was kind of on the same line of Kim's question, but do you have any other advice for women in surgery, or women in medicine in general? And if you could like give an example how you navigated a difficult situation, um, that would be really helpful.
Any particular situation or
Um, well, I guess I'm selfishly asking because I had like a weird professional situation the past few months with another student, and it's definitely based off of like there was racism and sexism, and I just like never really heard of how people actually dealt with that in like a tangible way. I mean, they tell us to be professional, but like how do you protect yourself in that space? How do you still seem like a professional person when you're in the receiving end, you know? Um, but yeah.
right. Yeah, so actually this happened recently on call, where it was actually a patient who was this like elderly, frail lady, got transferred from another hospital to our hospital, one of our hospitals, and was doing fine, and then became septic because she had an infected kidney stone, and she just started crashing after like, 2 hours of being transferred. And so once we got word, we came in immediately and booked the OR. We were going to unblock the kidney with a stent, but family members were around, and they were telling the people at the other hospital, something's not right, you need to do something. And so when they came, they were already upset, and I came in and I talked to the family, and the one of the daughters was like, I am so angry, I hate you, you need to do your job, you need to do your job right now, you need to step up and do your job. And I was like, and I was just taken aback because here I am waking up at 3 in the morning to come take care of your loved one. And it wasn't because I was snoozing for 2 hours. I came immediately, and so your blood starts kind of boiling a little bit because you don't deserve to be treated that way when you're trying to be helpful. And I think the important thing is to just kind of bring that to light. You need to kind of bring that up and say like, I said, like, excuse me, I'm sorry, why are you speaking to me this way? I'm just trying to help. I'm happy to help your mother and all this stuff. And I don't think I deserve to be treated this way. I haven't done anything wrong. I've come immediately to take care of your mother. And so when I brought that to light, she kind of like snapped out of it and was like, I'm so sorry. I'm just really scared. And I was taking it out on you. I was taking it out on your resident and everybody else around us. And, the other hospital wasn't listening to me. And, I'm just frustrated. But I think it's bringing it into light in a way that, is respectful, I think is very helpful. And then, yeah, I think she just kind of calmed down after that. But, she would have never done that to any of my male partners. But I take a lot of brunt of things. I do experience it a lot. And so yeah, I think it's just trying to stay as calm as possible and bringing it to light. And I think calling people out on their wrongdoing sometimes in a matter of fact way can help. And then definitely document everything as well. So I think that's something to do, and then talk to somebody. Like I would talk to risk management or somebody above me to just let them know. So like in your situation, maybe talking to the program director or talking to a medical faculty or something as well would be helpful. And I've experienced a lot of racist things too. And in Nebraska, where there's a small Asian, a smaller Asian community, I've had, people who didn't want me to be their physician because I wasn't, because I was Asian. And I just respect their wishes and refer them to someone else so they can get help. I've had somebody who like towered over me and who actually, I had made my recommendations, and they didn't want to hear me and they wanted to hear the medical students evaluation because the medical student was, a 6 foot Caucasian male. And they're like, well, what does he have to say? I want to hear what he has to say. And I'm like, oh, okay. So there's a lot of things that can happen, but it's like just developing a thick skin and just trying to do your job and, bring things to light when it needs to be and protecting yourself and staying safe. And when that guy towered over me, I just kind of stepped back and just wanted to get out of there so nobody could get hurt. But yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I feel like a lot of the times we think that we have to suffer in silence, and it's like not always, it's like very frowned upon in medicine to report things. So I'm really happy that you brought that up and also said calling out. I think that's a really good, tangible advice because I actually that was the situation. I was like physically like intimidated by another person.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you would never do this to someone who's like not 5'2" an Asian and woman.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't help that I'm 5'1 1/4. So
I know. Little do they know we're like 6'5" in our heart.
yes. But it's gonna happen, unfortunately. I mean, just kind of preparing yourself for things and just trying to stay as safe as possible and out of harm's way. And trying not to rev up the situation by bringing more
Yeah,
anger to it. But just trying to calm them down.
de-escalate.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect. Does anyone else any other questions? I think the chat's good. All right. So I think we can close out for today. Dr. Delto, thank you so much for joining us. It was really, really amazing to hear about your journey and all your insight on all the questions that we had today. I think this is concluding the end of our diversity portion of the leadership training. For the folks in the chat, I'm just going to drop a little feedback form if you can send that for us, and that will help us develop these events to be better next year. And Dr. Zelto, do you have any closing closing words for us?
Nope. I just, thank you for the opportunity to be here and talk to you guys. I wish you all the best of luck. Follow your dreams and don't give up and work hard.
Thank you so, so much.
All right. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Enjoy your week. Thank you so much. That was so awesome. And I loved hearing your story. It was so, so cool. Like I really related to growing up with like with like only my mom raising me basically. And I also like busted my butt working in restaurants like my whole life, like since I was like 16 until now. So it was really awesome hearing your story. And like all I hear in the hospital is like, oh yeah, I'm like fifth generation doctor. So